Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Tuesday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. We are here for the next hour to talk New York Giants football with you at 201-939-4513. Paul Dottino and Matt Citak. And, you know, it's another gorgeous day here in North Jersey. We had 2 days in a row now where the weather really seems to be inching toward summertime. And that means the guys got to practice outside again, Matt. And that's always good to see, because when it rains, they got to go inside, and that's never as nice in the field house.
It's getting warmer and warmer each day we pass through OTAs.
It really is.
Yesterday was like in the 60s or 70. Today it was 80.
So. I think it got to 70.
And next practice Thursday could hit 90.
I heard.
Which that's a little too hot for me, but
yeah. Well, no OTA tomorrow, by the way.
Yes.
And then Thursday is a media day OTA. As a reminder, our show will start an hour later that day.
Yes.
We will be starting at 1:30 on Thursday because of media availabilities due to the OTA that will be happening in the morning into the middle of the day. So, again, we always want to bring the show to you after those so that we have some stuff to pass along.
Yeah, and then Thursday is going to be a busy day. Of course, we have OTA practice, but instead of Coach Dable speaking, they sent the media schedule out, and we have the three coordinators speaking Thursday morning. So Mike Kafka, Shane Bowen, and Mike Gobriel will be speaking before practice. The practice, media will be here. I'm sure they will be live tweeting everything. And then some players are going to speak. We don't know who yet. And then Brandon Brown, assistant GM. We'll hear from him, which we only hear from him once, maybe twice a year. So we'll get to hear from him for the first time in a while.
That is true. So we're looking forward to having some fun. Now, as far as today, our number is 201-939-4513 as we come to you from the Giants podcast studio presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. Feel free to dial us up, or for that matter, hashtag Giants Chat on Twitter. We do have a pair of questions for you today. Now, I'll give you the first one. Matt will give you the second one. What we want to know, and because, we're just trying to fill out some time here with things being a little bit dead period.
Sorry, don't mean to cut you off, but before we go to this, you want to give a quick recap of what happened in practice today?
I was going to give the question first so they could think about it.
Okay, that's fair.
And then we'll give the practice report.
That's fair.
Okay? Question to think about. We want to know which defensive player will have the most regular season snaps by the end of the season. And there are a few really good choices here. I think, we'll discuss that later on during the course of the show. But which defensive player will have the most regular season snaps by the time the season is over? That's question number one. Or if you prefer question number two, have at it.
Question number two. So this was an article that Pro Football Focus put out recently, sometime in the last couple of days. And they predicted who the most improved player at every position is going to be. So this could be anyone across the NFL, not just Giants, centric, but there were two Giants mentioned in this article. So our question is, who do you guys think will be? You can either guess one, guess both, but without cheating, without looking up the article, who do you think will be in the conversation for the most improved player at their respective position from the Giants?
You know what bothered me about what they did with that? One of the players, I don't want to. If I do this, it's going to give you a hint. It's going to be part of a hint. If a guy's coming off of an injury, it's more like he could be a comeback player if he was hurt, at least for part of the season. Can he be a most improved player if he's already played well in the NFL, then had a injury-riddled season that hurt his production, and then comes back and bounces back? I know that's probably going to give a hint now. It's going to give away one of the guys, but I don't think that qualifies.
Unfortunately, because of how last season went, I feel like there are a good number of Giants players that fall into that category of.
It does.
That's played
true.
Somewhat well, got injured, dealt with injuries for at least part of the year.
That is true.
So I don't think you gave it away there.
Okay. Hopefully I did not give it away. Again, I don't know if I agree with the context of the selection on that particular on front.
On both of them, or just the one? Okay.
The one that I'm sure you've already picked up from what I've said.
Yes.
This is kind of like Penn and Teller, right? Where they think they didn't fool them, and they gave like a little bit of a discussion, and somehow with the words they figured it out. Okay. That's the deal. 201-939-4513. We will discuss those questions in just a couple of moments. First, a quick practice report as to what happened at today's OTA. It was one of the lesser eventful practices that we've had so far. I don't think there's much doubt about that. It was a good practice for the tight ends. I thought Greg Dulcich and Daniel Bellinger in particular, each one of them made a nice grab. I think Fedoni also had himself a nice grab. So I'm going to characterize this one as a good practice for the tight ends. Dulcich actually did a really nice job on a short pass, and he wound up taking down the sideline for a touchdown, which was really nice. But that was the one position that stood out to me today.
Yeah, Dulcich looked great on that play. I mean, going into the draft, what was it, 2022?
Well, he's in the league. This is his fourth year, I believe, now.
So 2022 draft. Wow, I actually got that right.
Well, he's with Denver, injury plagued, but he was there for a while.
Yeah, but going into that draft, he was thought to be one of, if not the best pass-catching tight ends in that class.
Sure.
And he's dealt with a lot of injuries over the last couple of years. Seems to be fully healthy now. I mean, he's out there, going full throttle. And you're seeing a little bit of what made him so talented and special at UCLA. So, obviously there's a long way to go, and there's somewhat of a crowded tight end room now after the selection of Thomas Fedoni, Theo Johnson, Daniel Bellinger, Chris Manhertz. There's a lot of guys in that room. Jermaine Terry, he made a grab today as well from Tommy DeVito. So
he's thicker than the other tight ends.
Yeah, definitely. Just thinking of the tight ends for a moment, I'm sure you picked up on this too, but Jackson Dart and Thomas Fedoni seem to be developing some nice chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
Every time Jackson Dart is out there, he seems to be looking in Fedoni's direction.
They're also out there for relatively the same snaps most of the time too.
Of course, but it seems like Jackson Dart is targeting Fedoni potentially even more than, some of the receivers.
If you were a quarterback and you saw a guy who was 6'7" with length, wouldn't you want to throw to him?
Yeah, and with the way he's looked also this spring, since he's been in the building the last month.
Yes.
Fedoni could surprise a lot of people, but the position I want to talk about, because I also see that there was a comment on the YouTube chat or live stream about the secondary.
Yes,
because there are a couple of nice plays made by the secondary today.
Mm-hmm.
Towards the beginning of team drills, Cordell Flott had a nice pass breakup.
Yep.
But then the big play that I want to talk about was Javon Holland came up with an interception. I believe this was during 11-on-11s, so towards the latter part of practice, he had an interception. So this is OTA number 5 today. There have been 4 OTAs with actual team drills, and the top 3 safeties on the Giants have 4 interceptions in the 4 days of actual practices, with Belton coming up with 2, Newman coming up with 1, and now Holland coming up with 1. That is very encouraging for me to see. I mean, obviously interceptions were
at a premium.
Yeah, we didn't get too many of them last year. We didn't see it too often.
No, sir.
And, Tyler Newman was an absolute ball hawk at college.
He was.
He came into the league with, I think, Minnesota's all-time record for interceptions. Dane Belton has, in his limited playing time over his first 3 seasons, has found a way to just somehow always get the ball in his hands, whether interceptions, fumble recoveries. He's just a ball magnet. And then you have Javon Holland, who last season, it wasn't his best season with the Dolphins, but has also shown a tendency to, find the football when he's out there. So if the Giants are going to improve on their interception numbers this year, which, quite frankly, you can only go up from where it was last year pretty much.
It was tough.
I feel like these 3 safeties are going to be potentially the big driving forces behind it. And we're seeing it a little bit already this spring.
I thought Tay Banks had a nice breakup, too, today on one pass play. And then the rest of the practice, as I said yesterday with John, with the corners, it's almost like you'd rather see them not be noticeable, because that means they were covering guys and the ball wasn't going there. Well, I wanted to pay more attention to Banks yesterday, because we were talking about how Banks doesn't seem to be having any communication problems or getting caught out of position or getting burned or giving up too much cushion. In these OTAs, he seems to be playing better. He seems to be a little stickier, and he's closer to the receivers than maybe what he was doing last year. So we had that conversation with John yesterday. I watched him a little more carefully today. He had the one really nice pass breakup, and other than that, they didn't throw at him. It looked like they were just avoiding him.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're talking about these wide receiver quarterback matchups. Yeah. Obviously, there's no contact allowed,
I know.
Deonte Banks, one of his strong suits is press coverage, of course, and you can't do that right now. So I'm interested to see how he looks come training camp, because once training camp comes, the pads are on, then these guys, it's it's normal practice.
Let's go.
So it's full throttle.
Right.
That is when I'd be more interested to see how Banks looks. But you're right. Right now, this time of year, you would rather just not notice a cornerback.
Right.
That's probably the best part. So, yeah, the fact that Deonte, other than the one pass breakup, wasn't very noticeable, I'd say that that's a positive thing. Moving over to the offense, I just have my notes on my phone here. Well, the play of the day, in my opinion, was one of the last plays, was when Tommy DeVito found Jordan.
No. We discussed we weren't going to talk about him. Okay, it's too late. You already said it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Tommy DeVito threw a pass to Jordan Bly, who just outran everyone for a touchdown.
Yes.
The two of them talking about nice chemistry. They've had nice chemistry. I mean, last week we saw it with Tommy DeVito finding Jordan Bly, I think, for 2 touchdowns in the first day of team drills, the last Wednesday, I believe, and another one today. And the whole entire offense went to celebrate with Jordan Bly. It was a real touchdown, not just, one of those defense kind of steps off the pedal because there's no contact, you can't touch anyone. This was him just completely outrunning everyone into the end zone for one of the only touchdowns of practice.
Yes.
So that was good to see.
There were only a few.
There were only a few, yeah. Jermaine Terry had what might have been a touchdown. Again, it's tough because when the guys are running down the field and the defenders are running with them, they obviously are not jumping at them to tackle them, so it's a little tough to know.
The play on which he lumbered toward the end zone.
Yeah, he would have at least gotten somewhat close to the goal line, if not into the end zone. Let's see what else. Amir Smith-Marset had a nice sideline catch.
Yes.
That was very nice.
And I have noticed, and again, we know the Giants are down some in the receiving core in terms of availability, especially with Neighbors not being able to work. Smith-Marset has gotten some regular reps in terms of the passing game during our OTAs, and I think he's shown well.
I think so too. I mean, obviously last year sort of got the reputation of just being a special teams guy because he had that big, the big punt return?
Oh, he had the 100-yard kickoff return.
For
a touchdown, yeah.
He looked great as a returner, but yeah, granted, he also was brought in during the season, I believe.
Well,
it's not like he was here all off season.
I want to say he came in, was it week 2?
I believe it was after the season started.
I think it was week 2. But the point is, he wasn't given any receiving opportunities last year.
Yeah,
he was a return guy.
Limited.
I'm kind of intrigued by his receiving skills right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, granted, again, it's only spring, but he's shown more as a receiver than I was expecting to see out of him. And he obviously still has that kick return ability. Yeah. So if he can contribute even just a little bit as a receiver as well, that could, he could turn into a pretty big contributor this year for the Giants. Only other 2 plays I would want to quickly mention. On that Dolchik catch, Jameis Winston was the quarterback on that play.
Yep.
And he also had one other beautiful pass to Devin Singletary, who was running a bit of a sideline wheel route, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And
it was a wheel route.
Jameis just placed the ball perfectly right in Devin Singletary's basket, who caught it. Would have been probably, 30, 40-yard gain. It wouldn't have been a touchdown, but it would have been a big play. It was just one of the nicer passes of the day in terms of ball placement.
Yeah, I agree. That was a really nice throw. And just in general, I think Wilson and Dart, in general, through the first 5 OTAs, have probably been the 2 most accurate passers in general.
Yeah.
Through the first 5.
Well, Tommy's been pretty accurate, too.
Tommy's thrown the ball well, too. He hasn't had as many throws.
I was going to say, he just has had limited snaps compared to some of the other guys.
Exactly.
But, yeah.
All right, folks. That's our recap for practice today. The OTAs here continue again on Thursday We remind you the show will be moved to 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday when the next OTA takes place. That's an open media OTA. We're actually allowed to say more about that one because it's open to the media.
Yes.
And we will be moving the program to 1:30 Eastern Time. All right, 201-939-4513 is our phone number here on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Real quick, in terms of the defensive snap count, let me just answer that while John continues to line up some phone calls for us because they are coming in. For me, I'm going to go Tyler Nubin. I am very impressed with this young man who had a terrific rookie season. I like the fact that they love his smarts. They love the ability to move him around into different aspects of the scheme. He's young. He's healthy. He showed last year, and at Minnesota, he's not a guy who deals with many injuries. He seems to be able to stay on the field. And I'm going to say Tyler Nubin gets the most defensive snaps during this season.
Yeah, for me, it seemed like there were basically two possible
It could be three
answers.
or four, to be honest, I think.
But I centered it on two guys.
Okay.
Tyler Nubin was one of them because we saw last year prior to his injury that forced him to miss, I believe it was the last 4 or 5 games of the season. Prior to that, he missed, I think, a grand total of 2 snaps
Yeah, I think
in
so.
the first,
That's
I believe,
exactly.
12 or 13 games of the season.
And I think
as
part
a
of
rookie.
the reason I think they held him out at the end was also because of the way the season was going. I
Yeah.
think he probably could have fought through it if they were playing for something.
Potentially, yeah. But, yeah, I mean, he just was the Iron Man prior to that. I mean, barely coming off the field. And that is as a rookie.
Yeah.
Just being thrown right into the fire.
I'm very impressed with him.
And he looked pretty good. He held his own last year. So, yeah, that was one of the guys I was thinking about. And the other one, which I feel like should not come as much of a surprise because he has earned this honor before for this team,
I know where you're going.
would be Bobby Okereke.
I knew exactly where you were going.
Right up there with Nubin, Bobby Okereke is basically, I mean, obviously he dealt with an injury last year as well that forced him to miss a chunk of the season. But prior to that, again, was not coming off the field much at all.
Mm-hmm.
The year before that, was the year before that the year that him and McKinney both played every single snap?
That was 2023.
Yeah. So 2 years ago,
Yep.
he literally played every single snap. So you can't be on the field for more than that.
This is true.
So it might
That's
be a
why
bit
I
of a
figured that was going to be your
it
guy.
might be a bit of a cop-out answer, but I feel like between Bobby and Tyler Nubin, those are the two I would say most likely, also because of their positions. Bobby is obviously the anchor of the defense, the middle of the defense, and Nubin is sort of, I guess you could call him sort of the anchor of the secondary. So it makes sense that the two of them would be on the field just about every single snap, assuming they're healthy. So I feel like those are the two.
I
two
figure
answers.
if you wanted to up that umbrella a tad, you could have argued Javon Holland.
That's totally fair.
And I think you also could have mentioned either one of the 2 starting corners, Banks or Adebo.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
to me, I think the 4 starting guys in the secondary and Okereke are the most logical choices.
I think that's fair.
So
And I will say, I think maybe not quite in the conversation yet, but sneaking up there would be Micah McFadden.
you know what? A lot of that depends on how much they play Abdul Carter. Because I think Carter is going to take some of McFadden's snaps away. He'll take some away from Tibbs. He'll take some away from Burns. Probably not too many away from Burns. That guy just, he doesn't want to come off the field.
Yeah.
But they'll have to take some away from him. And then I think McFadden's going to lose some snaps to Carter too.
No, that's a fair point. I mean, we'll have to see how Shane Bowen, decides to deploy all of these now, kind of deep defensive roster.
Yeah.
And again, we've spoken about this. He can go with so many different formations, different personnel groupings. It's probably going to be more matchup based, obviously.
Yeah.
When, with what you were just saying with Abdul potentially taking some snaps from Micah, I could see, in a matchup like week 1 against the Commanders, where you have Jaden Daniels and you might want to put a spy on him.
Sure.
And someone that could keep up with Jaden Daniels' speed. Yeah, that could be a matchup where Abdul is on the field more for Micah than probably some of those other guys.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. All right, we'll get to question number 2 in just a bit. But for now, it looks like we got some phone callers. So let's go there. We will start with Tim in Charleston on line 2. You're first on the program. Hello.
Hey, guys. Hey, Paul. Hey, Matt.
Hi.
Hey, Tim.
So I wanted to go with your questions to lead off, and then just a little comment, if I remember it. But first of all, I think that I agree. I think it's going to be. I think the player with the most snaps in the team is going to be one of the safeties, either Holland or Newman. I mean, that just makes sense. So Carrick, of course, in the running, but I think with the combination of the 7 up front, there might be a couple options, chances for him to sit down. But either of the safeties could potentially play every defensive snap. And I would like to be picking an offensive player, but I think we're dreaming if we think our offense is going to be on the field more than our defense this year. So that being
well, we actually did ask the offensive question a couple weeks ago. So that's why we kind of went strictly with defense for this particular morning.
I didn't realize you even said defense. I thought you just said most snaps overall.
If I misspoke, I apologize. But the question today is about defensive snaps.
I heard it. Sometimes you hear what you want to hear, right?
How true is that? Go ahead.
And the most improved player, I'm going to go. I'm kind of. This is kind of wishful thinking. The players who I want to see most improved, because they'll have the biggest impact, would be Banks at cornerback, because it's like John says. He runs with people. He's like paper on glue with people. But he has to learn one thing: how to turn around and play the ball. And if he does that, I think that's going to show a huge improvement over his year last year, which was not great. And on offense, I'm going to go with JMS, John Michael Schmidt. I think, and that's more of a fingers crossed. I think if you wanted to go pure production, Theo Johnson's probably where I would hang my hat. But JMS is the guy who I would like to see be the best. And I don't even have a comment. I'll just let you off the hook with those and listen to the rest of the show on the air, guys.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Appreciate it. All good selections. And if any of those guys or all 3 get appreciably better, it's really good for this team.
Oh, 100%. I will say with the 2 guys in particular that Tim mentioned, with Banks and JMS, I think those 2 could be the most important players. Like, if they do take big steps, then that could very much help this team actually as a whole take a big step, because we just talked about all the guys on defense. If Deonte Banks can play, like the way that the team expected him to when they drafted him in the first round, moved up to get him, if he can play that level with now all the pieces that the Giants have around him, the defense will be significantly better.
Yes.
I have no doubt about that.
I totally agree.
And the same goes for JMS with the offensive line. If JMS takes a big year 3 step with a healthy Andrew Thomas and now the veterans that he has around him, the offensive line should take a big step. So I'm with you, Tim, that if those 2 players, if they take the steps that the Giants kind of need them to, that could mean very good things for the Giants defense and the Giants offensive line. Those were not the 2 players that PFF chose. Do you want me to say?
Before you do, here's what I will say. If you were to pick 2 players that you would want to take the biggest step forward, those are the 2 guys.
Without a doubt. Those are the 2.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. It's a different question to say which guys do you think will take the best step. So go ahead.
So we'll start with on defense. This is the player that Paul was alluding to before.
Sir.
They chose at edge rusher Kayvon Thibodeau.
Yeah.
They think he will be the most improved edge rusher, which, sign me up for that. If he takes a huge step in year 4 with Brian Burns and Abdul Carter, this could be like a pass rusher that leads the league in sacks then.
I mean, again, my problem is the context of the question, because he had 11.5 sacks 2 seasons ago in year number 2. Last year, had to deal with the wrist. Wasn't the same player in the pass rush category, but was still very good at holding the edge against the run. So I see him more as almost being more of a comeback player, because his sack number went down by more than 50%, and he missed a month of the season because of wrist surgery. So I have a hard time saying he needs to be, improved, so to speak, because I think I know what he can be because he's already shown it to us.
Yeah, well, I think
that's why,
based
for
on
me, the injury has a lot to do with it.
No, that's totally fair. And the article mentions the injury, but I think they're just saying what the article mentions is that he ended the season very strongly. It says he ended the season.
He was stout.
Not that we love the PFF grades here.
Right.
But his grade that PFF gave him from weeks 13 to 18 was 13th among all edge rushers in the NFL. 21 pressures in that 6-game span, which that is a good number.
Oh, it is. He didn't finish enough.
Yeah, that's why pressures, not sacks.
He certainly got in the backfield.
Yeah, so I think they're just saying that they kind of see him using that last month of the season as a stepping stone into the 2025 campaign. And obviously, the Giants drafting Abdul Carter, the three of them will all be on the field and be on the field a lot. But, I mean, if you're Kayvon, you obviously welcome the talent, influx to your room. But at the same time, I mean, these guys are all competitors. They want to be out there every single play. So drafting someone that at your position, even if it's going to help the team, obviously could light a little fire underneath him a little bit. So I think that is what the article is saying. Not that he needs to take a step, but they just think, given especially all the talent the Giants now have on the defensive line, they think he's just going to take a big step, which, again, would be fantastic for the Giants pass rush if Kayvon took a huge step now going into year 4.
Okay, who's the other guy?
The other guy is on the offensive side of the ball, and this was the one that I was a little, didn't know if I fully agreed, not because I don't think he will be good this year, but he started to show a lot before getting injured last year. It is Theo Johnson at tight end was their pick for the most improved tight end this year. And I mean, I think Theo Johnson is going to take a year 2 leap. I think he's going to show the way that he ended his season prior to that injury against the Cowboys. He was starting to really get going. And again, we speak all the time. It's not that easy for a rookie tight end to come into the league year 1 and light the league on fire. Obviously, Brock Bowers, he kind of did that last year, but he was considered, a generational talent at tight end prospect going into the draft. Theo Johnson was a 4th-round pick. Obviously, not quite the same expectations that Brock Bowers had coming into year 1, but he really started to get going before suffering that foot injury.
Yeah.
So this article pretty much saying with the expected improved play at the quarterback position, and with Malik Neighbors drawing the most attention of the Giants pass catchers, they think Theo Johnson could take a big step in year 2.
And I will say this, on one hand, I understand that because he was only a rookie and the production was limited, albeit good, before he got hurt. So it wasn't like he has already put up some big numbers before, as Kayvon Thibodeau did 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So in that regard, I'm willing to buy that. But the injury also costing him the last segment of the season also kind of slides him a little bit into comeback territory because his season was thwarted, stunted, shortened by an injury, which I'm with Matt on this one. I think the arrow was pointed in the right direction when he went down.
Yeah, it certainly was. I mean, again, I can see where PFF is coming from with these 2 selections. I do tend to agree with you that I don't know if most improved would be the label I would give them as opposed to just, who might take the biggest step, because it's not like either one of those guys were bad last year.
No.
I think most improved, I think of someone that struggled in 1 year and then was significantly better the next year.
Right.
I mean, that is the definition of improved. But,
so
I'm with you that would use slightly different verbiage to describe.
How about this?
These 2.
If JMS, Banks, Tibbs, and Johnson all have really terrific seasons, the Giants are going to be really good.
Yeah.
How about
Giants will be in very good shape.
We'll just go with that. I think that's probably the easiest way to envelope the answers to this question. 201-939-4513 is our phone number. We go to line 2. Rich in Virginia is next to the program. Hello.
Good afternoon, Godfather and Matt.
What do you say, Rich?
Hey, Rich.
Great. Keep up the great work. So, Bryce Ford Wheaton, I haven't heard anything about him. What's going on? Is he hurt again, or
No.
I haven't heard you mention him in OTAs? I assume he's still on the team.
Okay, his basic value to the team last year, because he was basically a special teams guy, and I don't even know how many receiver snaps he played, Matt. I'm not even sure. Maybe you could look that up real quick. It was very few. Very few receiver snaps.
Very few.
You're not going to get any production at OTAs out of your gunners. That's not what we're going to see here.
You want to take a guess on how many offensive snaps he played?
4?
2.
There you go.
Yeah. That's right.
So now what I have said, and you know this, Rich, you've been listening to the program for a while, I like him a lot. I liked him. Yep. He was my dark horse a couple of years ago when he came here as a rookie undrafted free agent. But it's clear, at least from what we've seen to this point, is that they are still looking at him as a key member of the special teams unit. And at least in the early OTAs, he hasn't gotten a ton of opportunities.
Yeah, no, that's fair to say. I would think that come training camp in almost a month and a half, he will get more opportunities, just because there will be more opportunities to be had by everyone. So I think he will get a little bit more action at wide receiver. But yeah, we just haven't seen him out there too much. I mean, they only have limited, team drills during these OTAs. And there's only so many snaps they can go around. There are a lot of wide receivers that are currently on the roster.
Yeah.
And, at least a handful of them are undrafted free agents, undrafted rookie free agents, where the team wants to see if they have anything with those guys. I feel like with Bryce Ford-Whedon, while I do think there might be some untapped potential there, for the most part, he's been around for a couple of years now. The team knows his game. They know what he's capable of. So I think his
gunner skills is going to get him a spot on the 53.
Yeah, he's one of, if not the best gunners on the team.
Right. So they know he's going to be here pretty much. So if you kind of know that, you can maybe worry about getting him some throws if you want to do that later on. Right now, they are in a total fact-finding mission with a bunch of these other guys who have not been here before. They're just coming onto campus in the last month, and they know nothing about these fellas.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you see, you hear us talking about, Tommy DeVito finding all these different players.
Exactly.
And these kind of, I don't want to say unnamed, but lesser known receivers and tight ends. It's because those are the guys that are out there the most right now during these team drills, because the team just wants to see what they have in these guys.
Right, exactly. So, Rich, I wouldn't necessarily look at it as a negative. I think it's just a matter of the context of what we're going through with OTAs right now. I would hope at some point, even if it's late in camp or just even during the preseason games, I hope Ford-Wheaton does get some opportunities to produce as a receiver. I'm still very intrigued by him. We just mentioned Smith-Morset. I mean, there's another guy
Matt,
who is in the same boat.
100%, because we all know, let's be honest, I like Slayton a lot. He's inconsistent. I mean, they gave him the new contract. But let's face it, being really brutally honest, we really need a no kidding number 2 receiver to complement, Neighbors. Because if you don't get, if we have the status quo, they're going to do the same. The defenses are going to do the same thing they did last year. They're going to double Neighbors. We need, and I know Joe Shane knows this, we need a solid number 2 receiver. And I hope, even though hope's not a strategy, with these plethora of kids that are, on a team, I hope somebody emerges.
Well, Rich, I think in the Giants' scheme of things, they look at Robinson as a significant threat in their offense. I think they believe that Theo Johnson will be a significant threat in this offense. So in their mind, I don't know that they need a clearly defined number 2. Slayton's a very good player. I understand on the better teams in this league, he's probably a 3. He's not a 2. I understand that. But you'll also remember, and I don't want to necessarily make this comparison, but I think it's important to understand. When Sims led the Giants to a Super Bowl in '86, their number 1 passing threat was Mark Bavaro. With the Kansas City Chiefs, Travis Kelce is always the go-to guy in the passing game. No matter how many other stars they've had there who have put up big numbers, when Mahomes needs that pass, he's going to Kelce. That's it. And everybody in the building knows it. So Do you need a clearly defined number 2 receiver? I don't know that you have to have one.
Not only that, but obviously, at least to start the season, who knows how long he'll be at that, but to start the season, Russell Wilson is the starting quarterback. And what does Russell Wilson do best? Throw the deep ball. And what does Darius Slayton, what's the best part of his game?
Yeah.
His ability to stretch the defense, take the top off the defense. So I think with Russell Wilson under center, Darius Slayton is capable of being the number 2 receiver. But I do agree that between Slayton, Wan'Dale, Theo, I don't know if one of them will necessarily, rise or elevate himself way above the others in terms of like targets or receptions. Maybe Wan'Dale just because of the nature of most of his receptions. But I feel like in terms of who will step up as that number 2 option in the passing game, that could change every single week. And you could throw in some of the running backs in that category. We saw Tyrone Tracy is more than capable of catching a lot of passes out of the backfield.
He is.
Cam Scadaboo did that at Arizona State. We know he can do it. So I think each and every week there could be a different, number 2 pass catcher in terms of, I don't want to say targets because, again, Wan'Dale probably will get the most targets of that group because of the nature of the type of passes he gets thrown. But who will step up as the quote-unquote number 2 option, that could change on a weekly basis.
Rich, if you want to rub that lucky rabbit's foot in your back pocket and you want to use that word hope that Jalen Hyatt breaks out.
Yeah, amen to that. Amen. I mean, that has been really frustrating.
I know.
And he hasn't had the chances. But the problem with him, I go back to 61. Even farther than you, Paulie.
Remember, before that 61 season, they traded a first-round pick to get Del Schaffner.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, how did that work out?
I understand what you're saying. I don't make any predictions because I've been a Giant fan way too long. But, my hope this year, even though it's not a strategy, is I don't say records or anything like that, is just to be more competitive in these games. Because,
right.
Gosh. If you remember the 66 Giants who had the worst defense in the history in the NFL, they gave up over 500 points. But watching the Giants in the last few years, and we watch obviously every minute of everything, it's been painful. If they're more competitive this year and they'll get blown out by Philly and Dallas, etc., they'll be okay because I like what Joe Shane did on the draft and in the off season. My biggest concern is the offense. They have to score more points. If they score more points, I think they'll be pretty, they'll be competitive. And that's my thought for this year. Been around way too long to predict anything about the Giants.
Think about this, Rich, because you said
they'll entertain me till the day I'm in heaven.
I got you. Now, it's many decades, so I leave you with this thought. Just remember, the darkest times of the Giants during your fandom, right? You're talking about the mid-'60s into the late Earl Morrall and Gary Wood were the quarterbacks, right? Then you go to the Yale Bowl days, horrible seasons at the Yale Bowl and Shea Stadium. Craig Morton was the quarterback. What's the common denominator here? The darkest eras or darkest years of Giants football, they usually did not have competent quarterback play. I mean, Joe Pisarcik in the late 70s. That wasn't very cool. And quite honestly, the quarterback smorgasbord we just saw wasn't very cool either. So you now have Russell Wilson, a future Hall of Famer, who is on the back nine, but a future Hall of Famer. You have truly legit quarterback play. So I don't think you necessarily have to worry about some of those dark years we've seen in the past where the common denominator was a really poor situation at quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, again,
and I agree with you 100%, Paul. I remember every one of those guys. Even though, like I said, I love the.
You'd like to forget about them
as a golfer, but I really think, honestly, and Russell Wilson, even though he's on a back nine, is going to give us the best quarterback play we've had in 5 or 6 years.
He absolutely should. Thanks, Rich.
So I'm excited, but I'm going to temper that. Every year my colleagues say, R2, don't believe the preseason hype. So I'm excited, but I'm going to temper everything.
Appreciate it, Rich. Have a great day.
Rich. Thank you.
Oh my! It's funny because every spring you draft, you get your free agents, and every team has a certain level of optimism every spring, right? Because every team starts 0-0, and it's like, well, we're 500, we're not under 500, we're 500 right now, and if we can be really good. I totally understand that. And that's why I appreciate Rich's perspective. On the other hand, we've got a few regular callers on this program who don't even want to recognize any of the ifs and automatically think that it's going to be a disaster. We're not going there either. Matt in Rhode Island, you're next on the program. Hello.
Hey, guys. First-time caller here.
Thank you.
You kind of touched on some of the points I wanted to make with regards to Slayton, but I'm going to say my piece anyway. Mm-hmm. I think the fan base is always way too rough on Slayton. I mean, like you said, he's never had good quarterback play, especially to his play style, which is the deep ball. I mean, DJ couldn't even throw one. We just got him for wide receiver 3 money. I mean, the $36 million deal is super cost-effective. And, if we look at this offense this year, we're going to have Neighbors doubled, Russ throwing the deep ball. Like, it's going to be an opportunity for Slay. And, we wouldn't need to sign him if Jalen Hyatt has come around. So, if he can show us something, maybe we can move off of Slayton. But until we do, it feels like we have way bigger problems to solve. So I wanted to know what you guys think about Slayton in general.
Yeah, well, I personally agree with you completely. I think a lot of people are way too harsh on Darius. Of course, he's had throughout, he's been here 6 seasons. He's had some issues with drops. Of course, I'm not going to deny that, but he's been just like the epitome of consistency almost every single year that he's been here. And as you mentioned, it's been with what we'll just call not the greatest quarterback play. And he has still found a way to put up 700 plus yards in four of the 6 seasons?
Yes.
Like, he's just been so consistent. He's averaging 15 yards per reception for his career. Mm-hmm. That is among of active players from the last, since he entered the league. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I know it's
sixth.
I was going to say it's somewhere in the top 10. Even last year.
It is.
Last year, which I think we'd all agree, Darius Slayton finishing with 573 yards and 2 touchdowns, not his best season.
Since 1989, when he came into the league, his first down percentage on receptions is top 20 in the NFL.
Yeah. I mean, again, 573 yards last year. I think we'd all agree that's not the greatest. We would all love to see that number be higher. He's still ranked 17th in the league in yards per reception. 17th. You're telling me that someone for his career who's averaging 15 yards per reception can't be a number 2 receiver? With a quarterback whose strengths level up directly with what Darius's strengths are.
I think a lot of people, when they equate a number 2 receiver, they're equating it with, if they don't have necessarily the high volume, they're equating it with a ton of touchdown catches. I think there are reasons why people say the guy's a number 2 receiver, and I get it. On many people's definitions, he is not a typical number 2 receiver. I get that. It's a perception thing.
Yeah.
Reality is he's a really good player.
Of course.
That's the reality. Perception, whatever you want to call him, I just call him a good player.
Yeah, look, not every offense across the NFL can have, a number 1 and number 2 receiver like the Cincinnati Bengals. Like, that's just not realistic for every team.
Or the Birds down the turnpike.
Yeah, or the Eagles. Not every team can build there are different ways to build the rosters, as we've discussed so many times.
No
but
or the Commanders or the Cowboys this year.
I mean, with the Commanders, they kind of traded for Deebo Samuel for pennies on the dollar. Like,
I know.
If Deebo looks like he did last year, I don't know if that trade is going to be lauded that much. If he looks like old Deebo, then of course that will look like a tremendous steal for them. But that one, I have to wait and see with that. Terry McLaurin's amazing, but I'm in a little bit of wait and see mode.
And who knows what's going to happen with Pickens? Who knows?
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, Pickens. He's got the talent.
He's got a few screws that aren't exactly wound as tight as they need to be.
He's definitely talented.
With Dallas. Anyway, go ahead. That's it? Oh, he's gone.
Oh.
All right. 201-939-4513.
Thank you for the call, Matt.
For sure. Before we get to anybody else, again, 201-939-4513. Did you post anything today on social in terms of the huddles or anything of that nature?
Yes. We had a new huddle today. Mike Gundy, Oklahoma State head coach, talking about Corey Black. How, his play at Oklahoma State, how he thinks he's going to fit in with the Giants. I have not had a chance to listen to it yet.
Okay.
But Mike Gundy's always a great listen.
Well, again, folks, check out the Giants Huddle podcast, all kinds of archive stuff from the last few weeks, from the draft going into it and then even post-draft stuff. There is plenty there for you to listen to, get some information about some of the Giants' young prospects. Giants Huddle podcast is on podcast platforms everywhere, giants.com/podcasts, and all of your favorite podcast platforms, and the Giants mobile app also. Don't forget that. I know a lot of people just go right to the mobile app and they listen to the stuff right through there.
Yeah.
So
videos are always up.
Videos are up. Giants TV on the internet as well, as part of Twitter. Plenty of videos up there. We're putting stuff up there every single day. And don't forget also your Giants season ticket memberships for the 2025 season are also available so that you can take in the action at MetLife Stadium. Also, you can stay connected to the club all year round, not just on game days. You get exclusive membership access and benefits. To learn more about a New York Giants season ticket membership, you can go to giants.com/tickets. 201-939-4513. We've got a few minutes left. We can sneak in a couple of calls if you guys want to get in. In terms of the rest of the week, so tomorrow is an off day for OTAs. Then Thursday's a media day OTA. Again, we told you we're going to start the program 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. Is there a OTA on Friday?
No, not this week.
They are off on Friday.
Next week it is Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
And do we know the media day next week already?
Next Thursday.
So it's this Thursday and next Thursday.
Yep.
So those are the media days. So now I can tell you, write it down on your calendar. It's not only this Thursday, but next Thursday, BBKL starts at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. Again, so that we can get you all the information from the OTAs and the media sessions and have a chat with you folks and let you know what's going on here outside on the practice field. 201-939-4513 is our phone number. It looks like John's about to throw somebody on hold. And if he does, we'll take that next phone call as we only have a couple of minutes left in today's program. One other item I did want to bring up. And, we talked about this during rookie minicamp. And I don't know if it's caught your attention. But Jackson Dart, when he's not working with his group of offensive players on the second field, because they split up, folks. What you'll usually see is Wilson and Winston will be with one group of players, and they're running snaps on one field. Mm-hmm. And then on the other field, you'll see DeVito and Jackson Dart. But when Dart is not on a separate field, do you notice how attentive he is sometimes? He'll be in the back or on the side, and as Wilson is taking snaps, he's pretending like he's taking snaps. And he's leaning over, he's looking over, he's watching, he sees, then he's like, and then take a couple of steps back. This guy is working nonstop. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, normally in the situation that you're describing, behind the play, you'll have, Coach Dable, Kafka, Shea Tierney, like the coaches standing there. But you're right, Jackson Dart, any chance he gets, when he's not the one taking the snap, he pretends like he is the one. He'll be like 10 steps behind the huddle, and he will be pretending to take the snap, do a drop back, like look at, the receiver that he thinks he would throw the ball to. Like, it's little things like that at this time of year. You like to see it. And I'll take it one step further. He's not the only one that's doing that. A different position, but, we mentioned Malik Neighbors hasn't had the chance to do much, but
he's in the huddle.
During team drills, he goes in the huddle with the first team offense to listen to the play. And then when they break, he steps back to that,
absolutely
stands with the group behind the huddle.
I'm glad you said that.
But Malik is taking every mental rep that he can, even when he's not actually out there taking
got a sore
all
toe, by the way.
team drill. Yeah.
He's got a sore toe.
Coach Dable spoke about it last week.
Right.
Just, it doesn't seem like something that, to be too serious. But
well, they're letting him out there walk around.
Yeah, that is true. And he was working out in, was it phase 1 or phase 2 of the workout program? He was in the gym. So, but yeah, the two of them taking every single mental rep that they can when they can't physically actually be out there for every snap.
They're all in.
Great to see it because those are two guys that you would hope will be the two of the biggest, turning points for this franchise. Those two guys. So.
For sure. So anyway, I did want to mention that because I don't know if we've talked about that before.
No, I'm glad you brought that up.
And it's a good sign at the very least. Brandon in New Jersey, you're next on the show. Hello.
What's going on, Matt? What's going on, Paul?
Hi.
Hey, Brandon.
So I got one thing, and then I got a small criticism of something Matt keeps doing, and then I got a random suggestion for Paul. Paul, you're going to have to be open-minded with my suggestion.
Okay.
Right?
Sure.
All right.
All right, let's
buckle
go.
up for this one.
Hit all three of your items. Go ahead.
All right. So my first football-related thing is it's a little bit like bold prediction kind of area, or just something I'd like to see happen. And I'd personally like to see Greg Van Roten start at center this year. And my reasoning for it is when Van Roten was on the field at guard, last year, even though he's a backup center, there was way less interior pressure for the entirety of the time he was on the field. Meanwhile, at the beginning of the year, when the line was performing its best, most of the time when there was pressure, it was given up by JSM. And I think this team is at a point now where before they were having to draft players, and then just because of the nature of the roster, the depth, and all of that, a player would be drafted and immediately expected to start given the role, not compete for it, but given to them. JSM is one of those players, and so far, in my opinion, other linemen have outplayed him, but there just hasn't been numbers. This is the first year there's been numbers, and I'd like to see JSM take a backseat to Van Roten and get the best 5 offensive linemen on the field at the beginning. What is your thought on that first?
All right. I'll give you a couple of thoughts. One will be fact-based. The other one is strictly a philosophy and an opinion. I'll start with that part of it. JMS is going into his 3rd season, which, as we all know, that needs to be the breakout season for any of your prospects as they develop. Number 3 is a very critical year for that player. I think JMS, because he's undersized, he has to continuously add to his power quotient. I think that's where, in my opinion, his game has led to inconsistencies, because there are too many times that these bigger nose tackles in the league are able to overpower him. And if he can add to his power quotient this year, and I don't know exactly where his strength results are as they're doing their off-season strength and conditioning programs. I don't know where his numbers are. But he, in my opinion, the one thing he needs to do more than anything else is to continue to get stronger. So if you're going to put him, slide him on the depth chart, it's not going to help him. He's not going to get better. He's never going to have that chance to break out if you're just going to give the job to Van Roten. Van Roten's already hit his ceiling. We know what he is. There's no upside to him. There is supposed to be, theoretically, upside to JMS. So I think philosophically that's a counterproductive thing to do. I do believe Van Roten should be the backup center, and if JMS either does not play well or gets hurt, I think Van Roten should be the center, and I think he'll be okay. That's number 1. My second point is more fact-based. On my film study, I had Greg Van Roten allowing 7.5 sacks last year. I had Schmitz allowing 4.5. So I would, despite the fact that I think Greg Van Roten played well, I think you're kind of overestimating a little bit in terms of how much better you think he played than JMS.
Can I?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Can I add something to that, though?
You can.
When Van Roten played, who played with the better line, JMS or Van Roten, when he was on the field? Like, as an entirety of the group, not just one. Because I think Van Roten played with our majority. That's when the line really started to be depleted. Now you got some issues in other places.
Well, here's what I will say.
Van Roten's giving up more sacks because there's more help needed in more places. You know what I mean?
Here's what I will say, all right? I charge Van Roten with giving up 1 sack in the opening game against Minnesota. He gave up 6.5 sacks between October 20th against Philadelphia and the rest of the season. Okay? So in the first half, he had a string of 5 consecutive games without allowing a sack. And then his sack numbers started to pile up. I can only tell you those are the facts. That's not an opinion. Those are facts.
JMS also started at center through week 16. Greg Van Roten only started the last 2 games at center. Otherwise, JMS was out there. And for those that listen to this show often, I love Greg Van Roten. I was very happy that he was brought back. Overall, I do think in a vacuum, he probably played a little bit better than JMS last year. If you just putting the two of them individually in a vacuum. But as you mentioned, Paul, one of them is going into year 3, and the other one is going into year 13, 14.
It's up there.
There is a lot more to gain for this franchise to continue to grow and develop JMS than it is to just bench him,
no doubt,
for Greg Van Roten, who's here on a 1-year deal again. And to take it one step further even, and you may not want to hear this, but JMS took a step last year. Granted, that probably is because as a rookie, his play was, not as good as anyone would have hoped.
Yeah.
But he was better last year. No doubt about it. He was pretty significantly better. Now, he still needs to take a big leap to where the offensive line needs him to be. He needs to take another step and he needs to grow. But year 3, as Paul mentioned, is when offensive linemen are sort of believed to take that step, is year 3. If he takes a step from last year to this year, like he took from year 1 to year 2, everyone will be happy with the way JMS plays.
We said that he was one of the 2 most important improvements that you could want if you were to identify that. We've already said that. So we understand how you're not satisfied with how he's played so far. That's not a problem.
Yeah. I mean, if you look, PFF tracks offensive linemen, their pressures and sacks allowed on a weekly basis. They have JMS down for 6 sacks allowed on the season. 3 of those came on that Thanksgiving game against the Cowboys, in which the Cowboys just say what you want about the game. Obviously, the Cowboys won that game.
It was not a good game.
It was not the best game for the Giants or the Giants offensive line. 3 of his 6 sacks allowed came in that one game, which means he missed the last 2 games of the season. So the other 14 games, he gave up 3 sacks. I think we would all sign up for that, rate of sacks allowed from JMS this upcoming season.
And I know those are all subjective, right? Sacks are always going to be subjective. So, I only have him for 4.5 because I do charge sacks to quarterbacks. Okay, I don't know if PFF does, but I do. I charge them to quarterbacks. If the guy held the ball for 5.5 seconds, that's not the offensive lineman's fault. So I'm a little different. I have a much more coach's angle when I grade my sacks. But nonetheless, John Michael Schmitz, he had 2? I guess he allowed 2 in the first half of the season, and 2.5 in the second half of the season. I don't, I think you're a little bit more down on him than you need to be. Anyway, you had 2 other points. Please go ahead.
Yeah,
yes.
Real quick, final thought on that, and then I'll move on. I'd be interested. You guys only said sacks. I'd also be interested to know what the pressure numbers is, and my reason for that is I think it'd be easier. I know JMS is in his 3rd year. I think it'd be easier to let him get a break. There usually is some type of injury, and then let him get on the field, as opposed to put him on a short leash at the beginning of the year and then have to pull him. I would rather just, the other way around than having to put him on a short leash, because he still does have another year under contract. But I'd be interested about pressures, not just sacks.
Real quick, Brandon. Real quick for pressures. JMS was on the field for 180 more pass block snaps this past year than his rookie year, and he gave up 2 fewer pressures.
All right. Well, the numbers are the numbers. I won't dispute them. So
again, those are PFF numbers.
Yes, these are PFF.
I always attribute their numbers to their numbers because I never want to be responsible for their numbers.
100%.
Go ahead. What else do you have?
Criticize me now.
Criticism, and it's more or less on that same line. My issue, again, is when players are given spots and not earned. I need the Giants to get to a point where we set a standard, and then you either meet the standard or we move on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Matt is already fallen victim to that already. He keeps saying the words or the phrase franchise quarterback for a rookie that's never played a snap.
No.
And I would just like to leave that. I understand if that's the expectation, but I'd like to leave that phrase until at least a second contract. I don't think you are a franchise quarterback till your second contract. So they're a rookie right now.
Brandon?
I think that's so far down the road that we shouldn't even be putting that on him yet.
Okay.
Brandon, I'm fairly confident that any single time I mention Jackson Dart and that phrase, I say hopeful or potential franchise quarterback, because clearly the trade that the Giants made in the draft, that is the hope that he gets there. I have never once said that he is the franchise guy, because you're right, he hasn't played a single snap in the NFL yet.
Right.
You have to earn that title. It's not just given to you. So if I have said it, I apologize. I'm pretty sure every single time I say the hopeful or potential franchise quarterback.
He's drafted with that intention. That's
for
all
sure.
it is. That's
for
all
sure.
it is.
You don't make that move unless you think
Yep.
he has the potential to get to that level.
Okay, what do you got for me?
Expectation. All right, Paulie, open-minded here. Open-minded, please, because we all know right now you're in good shape, but come end of July, you're going to be shaky, very, very jittery, very excited, and unable to contain oneself by the end of July. We all know that's coming, right? And it has never made sense to me why you're so against Madden. Like, I don't understand why you don't play. It seems like the exact game that would get that jitteriness down in July. Paul, the first time you beat a blitz, I think it's over. I think you should try to play Madden for once instead of just poo-pooing it quick. I think you should try it. Just try it once. If you don't like it, then boom. All right, but
Brandon,
you got the right personality for it.
I power walk a minimum of 5 miles a day. That's how I get out my stress and I get out my jitters. I don't have patience or time for video games.
I would love to see you try to play Madden. Please, if you ever want to try, please let me know. Please, I'll play with you.
Podcast episode would be great. It's a good content.
Oh, my goodness.
Watch him try to figure out a throw to A. That'd be awesome.
Brandon, I appreciate it. Thank you. That's 201-939-4513 is our phone number. Jot it down for the next program.
I would love to see you play with like one of the guys on the team. Have them try to teach you how to play Madden.
Truth is, I have never, ever even touched one play of Madden. And it's been around for 30 years? 25 years? How long?
At least 25.
Right?
I mean, I had it growing up. I'm 32, and it was long back, far back as I can remember.
I have
late
never
90s.
even attempted to play one snap of
It's a shame.
Madden.
It's a lot of fun. Granted, I haven't played in a while, but I grew up playing it all the time, and it was a lot of fun.
I was a Donkey Kong guy. You want to talk about video games? I was a Donkey Kong guy. I was a Pac-Man and a Ms. Pac-Man guy. Galaxian was another one. Right? You know, I was into some of the arcade video games.
You're dating yourself just a little bit.
Well,
Right?
you know, I get it. But those were fun video games at the arcades. But I was not so much into the home video games. You know, the replications of NBA and Madden, and no, I wasn't as much into those.
You're missing out. A lot of fun. Entertaining.
I get it. I'd rather be going for a 5-mile power walk, though. I like to get outside. I like to be active. I don't want to spend 2 hours sitting in front of a television, you know, moving my thumbs. I'd rather get out and be active.
I can't argue
It
that.
helps the blood pressure.
100%.
To be out.
100%. I can't argue that.
That's how I stay so energetic. 201-939-4513. Write it down, folks. Big Blue Kickoff Live returns tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time for another live edition. And, of course, you can always get the program on the archive. It is presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. For Matt Citak, I'm Paul Dottino. We'll see you again next time. So long, everybody.